would like now to invite Jean-Marc Mangin from PFC to share his slide.
Merci Manuel, merci Susan. Unfortunately, I don't have a squirrel on my slide, so hopefully I'll put it to sleep. And let's see if it actually works. So, thanks first of all for the invitation. So I'd like just to share a few thoughts. You can actually see some overlap with some of the points that Susan just raised, minus a squirrel. So my first slide is wrong. So if yes, you can actually be at a crossroad and also in uncharted territories. There are choices to be made, and sometimes historic cliches can be true, and that we are living in historic times is undoubtedly true. There's massive political, economic, social shift that are happening and accelerating because of the pandemic. And if you take some historical comparison, coming out of World War II and World War I, the international community put system in place that in the case of World War I failed very quickly. In the case of World War II, brought to the Western world prosperity for 70 years. But that system is showing all of its cracks, and it's coming to a transformational moment. And so that's kind of the big picture. So what is the space for philanthropy within that? And what how are we going to incorporate these transformational pressure? And I think there's an opportunity for our sector to develop and emerge a new social compact with Canadians, but because there's so many unknowns moving forward, there's a critical role for research and for data to shed some light, and for that research that needs to be relevant both to practice and to policy. So what choices that that foundations in particular have to make moving forward, and there's a list of questions that I'm putting on the screen here. That list is not exhaustive. There's many more other questions that could be attached to that. For example, the relationship with government. Should foundation try to align their program as much as possible with the government initiative, or try to influence government, or should they try to actually play on this autonomy and its freedom to initiate and support initiative that would never come from government? Is that, can you have both? Can you actually play on these two dimensions? And what does good practice look like in kind of government relations? So that's a question that's not listed here. So what we've seen over the last year, that many foundations have provided for the first time unrestricted program funding to their partners, but it's not clear to me, and that's why research could shed some light, whether these practices are temporary or permanent. Is this actually, as we believe, bringing to better programming and better impact? So there's some evidence from elsewhere in the world, but actually quite little from Canada to know what are the benefits, but also the pitfalls of moving together these with looser agreement and project proposal and reporting. What are the implications of that? And some people are putting trust-based philanthropy in the position with strategic philanthropy. In fact, can you still be strategic in your choices as a funder, but also develop different kind of relations with your partners that are much more based in trust? Are they in conflict, or can both be true? Again, research can shed some light. I find the issue around fascinating that with the pandemic, we've seen many initiatives of foundation working with the community foundation on very localized response to the crisis. We've seen that in Vancouver, we've seen that in Calgary, we've seen that in Montreal. And so that more localized approach is again a permanent feature of the ecosystem moving forward, or is it a blip in our response? Other foundations have decided to work on broader policy issues. Climate change comes to mind, of course, but also if you look at the last budget and the announcement around childcare. But there's some foundations that have been working on that issue since the 1980s, and what it was at the margin of the policy process, and not alone, working through partners, working with researchers, working with activists, creating the space and building the evidence for influencing government policy, first in Quebec and now across the country. So that long-term engagement on broad societal issues, that there's some interesting case studies that, again, there's little research in Canada to try to capture what has worked and what does not work so well about influencing government policy, which I raised. The last year brought with the global anti-racism movement starting in the US, but all over the world, that put the issue of representation and anti-racism right at the core of our operation. We know that philanthropy in Canada is a wide project. So how do you open up and make sure that it's not only an issue of saying the right things, but doing the right things through a range of ways in your governance, in your staffing, in your programming. You could realize with some family foundation, like how do you diversify a family? So, but we know they are interesting practice through advisory committees, through external members, to help broaden the perspective around the board table, around the staffing, around the programming. So again, what's working, what's not working, a lot of project, a lot of research, interesting research project to be done. On the issue of reconciliation, well, we've had many foundations, over 80 signing the Declaration of Action in 2015. And some interesting work has come forward, but my perception progress has been quite slow. Why is it so slow? So it's like and what could be done to accelerate progress? I'm quite excited about the work that's been done with the Indigenous People Resilience Fund, and that use the pandemic as an accelerator to bring it up to speed and to deploy philanthropic resources in very innovative ways. I mean, if for some of you that perhaps have seen our Wednesday webinar on December 2nd with our colleagues from the Indigenous People Resilience Funds, they don't use paper proposals. They use the oral tradition of Indigenous nations to share what the needs are and to start projects. It's a very different way of approaching philanthropy. There's a lot to be learned as well. On the issue of investments, they are massive interest of how do you unlock the assets in the endowments to better serve our mission, to more closely related to programming, impact investment. How do you define these things? What are the actual rates of returns? What's the actually and and go beyond the rates of returns? What's the social impact of these investments on the community? Again, the Canadian landscape is fairly undeveloped, and we're still lacking real case studies, sufficient case studies. And I want to point out that actually there's been some good progress over the last year with the partnership we've had with Susan, the partnership we've had with PhiLab, the emergence of case studies of the Canadian context. We tend to go to the US or to Europe for finding case studies, and there's some learning to be done there as well. But what strikes me is because it was so different in Canada vis-a-vis the US, that we should be very careful in terms of just adopting either the critique or the strategies of foundations that's currently in the US and just apply it without question in Canada. We should look at the Canadian context and realities and learn from those and make that learning widely available to help us as a community in terms of these kind of choices that we have to make moving forward. And I think I'm going over my 10 minutes, but just a couple of last points. One is that I think going back to pre-COVID is not an option. Yes, there's a power of established patterns, going back to what's comfortable. But the first point that I made, that simply putting new words to old patterns won't wash with our partners. And we have to look at the intent of the action and the impact of the action. And try to do as much as we can to narrow the gap between intent and impact. So that for me, that's kind of the exciting in terms of building a research agenda with our partners in the community, to build on the strengths of philanthropy, but also address many of the weaknesses. So that what I mean by playing to philanthropy's strengths is that philanthropy has got an amazing freedom, a tolerance to risk, an ability to fund things that no other dollar can fund. It's long-term horizon, its lack of agenda and obligation to politics. But with that freedom also comes responsibility, because we are fiduciaries of private resources serving the public good. And we need to be being accountable, transparent, sharing our knowledge, lessons, and resources as partners, not as directing and controlling funders. So that shift, we need a new regulatory framework to help with that shift. Again, research can play a critical role in that journey.
We have 1 more minute, Jean-Marc.
Yes, okay. And then so to do that, PFC, the board went through a process of looking at our mission and our strategic plan moving forward, and we revisited what our mission is. That we are clearly here to serve the public good and embracing the diversity of philanthropy in the pursuit of a just, equitable, and sustainable world. And I'll just leave you with the last slide, that an invitation to seize the moment. I'm a member of the technical committee of PhiLab, that's that SSHRC finance program, where to finance partnership research between foundation, civil society organization, and researchers to really address some of the questions that I've raised today, and Susan as well, and I'm sure David will point out the gap in the data. There's a lot to be done. I'm a bit surprised that we don't have that many proposals coming to us that are of a real partnership nature between not-for-profit charitable organization and researchers, and to really be ambitious in the kind of research questions, and that help in that transformation, that address the transformation moment that we're in. So on that note, Manuel, I apologize for being so over my time, and I'll pass on back to you.
You've addressed so many important issues that I felt compelled to let you finish your thoughts. Thank you so much, Jean-Marc.